Have you ever been told that you weren't good enough? Have you ever had the experience of being benched? Like your results are so bad that we can't afford to have you go out. I've experienced that. I've experienced that level of feedback. Before then, feedback wasn't something I really liked. But after that experience, I learned how to take feedback and use it as fuel. And as a result of that, I developed a relationship with results. It surpasses just general knowledge. Knowledge is not power. Knowledge is potential. Action is where the power is. Let's look at a framework that will support you in embracing feedback and taking fast, immediate, sometimes irrational action towards your dreams. Let's grow. Have you ever been told that you were not good enough? And I don't mean like in an altruistic way, talking about your value as a human being. I mean the job that you were doing or the job that you were asked to do, like you were not producing. So much so that, you were laid off, you were demoted, right? I'm recalling a time when I literally, I call it being benched. Go sit down, go have a seat. It was so bad. It was so bad that the company that I was working with at the time, literally my boss calls and is like, listen, your results are so bad that we cannot have you go out. Sit this one out this weekend. We're going to put someone else in your place. That's what I mean. You're not good enough. And how you're performing is not working for what the company needs. That's what I mean. And I remember that time. I'm even hesitant as I talk about it because I remember that time. It was so gut-wrenching to know that I loved what I was doing. I felt like I was adding value to the lives of people, and yet my results were not there. One of the things that I've come to note about, high achievers is they have a very healthy relationship with not only results, but also the feedback that results produce. They have a very healthy relationship with results. There's a quote that says the only fair way to gauge is by results. Often harsh, but always fair. To gauge, not judge. And it goes beyond just nepotism. It goes beyond who do you know and who knows you, but you're required to do a particular or specific job. That's what I'm talking about. And then I started to apply that to my life, and I would encourage you to do the same, to have a relationship with results in your life such that you're willing to be honest with yourself, about how you're showing up and what type of game in your life are you playing. Is it one that meets a higher or a lower standard? Perhaps you've set a standard so low that it's easy to match and reach, but notice how it's not very fulfilling. When I was, I look at, I'm a, avid sports fan, and I tend to, and I'll watch any sport really, particularly in the championship games, those championship moments. Now, I may not, I'm not a fanatic that will watch an 82 game NBA season, but particularly if there's a game 7 in the finals, I'll watch that game. And I think I watch it differently because I'm watching to see the reaction of winning teams. And there's elation, but if you look closely, you'll also see there's some exhaustion. There's a deep sigh. There's a remembrance of the work that went in. I'm always looking for that because what I know to be true is that it's not all glitz and glamour. And for those people who look for success to be smooth sailing, no downs, only ups, no failures, only successes, right? I used to be that person. I thought that if it was hard and challenging, then it must mean that I was doing something wrong. That if there was adversity, then, oh, well, it must not be for me. How ridiculous is that, right? We kind of been sold this idea that when it comes to success and comes to winning, that, it's smooth sailing. But, what if that's not true? What if that's not true? What if you're being tested in those moments where, like, when you're ready to give up, when the adversity and challenge is too much, like, what if you came to know that that was the place, actually, where you're developing that resilient mindset necessary to be able to sustain the success that you've created? So we've been sold a bill of goods in many respects, right? We've been sold a bill of goods in that we are not really conditioning and equipping ourselves for what winning is really like, what it's really like to excel, what it's really like to achieve. And so, just really quickly, I want to share with you a framework for a healthy relationship with results. One where you can look at the results and say, okay, well, that's not like they don't define me, but they do matter, right? I create a result, but I am not my result. Okay, so the way that you frame it can keep you from like falling into depression and just tanking. So that, I had a reaction to being told, like, no, you don't get to go out. Like, we don't need you. Or said better, we need you to be better. And when you get better, you can go again. So first and foremost, you got to assess where you are. You got to be honest with yourself about where you are and the pain that you're in or the pain that it's causing someone else. So going back to a lower standard being set. If you've set a lower standard and you're just, matching or meeting that standard, you've given up on the bigger dreams. You've given up on the bigger possibilities. You've fallen into that justification of, well, no one needs all of that and I'll be fine. And this is okay. My life is okay. Right? One of the reasons why more people aren't happier is because we're not chasing big enough challenges. We're not going after big enough dreams. We're not getting knocked down enough and then having the feeling, that exhilaration of getting back up. That's one of the reasons why people are less happy, because everything has been made so convenient, so easy, that we're not being really called to endure a struggle. That's part of the game, because it builds us into who we're capable of becoming. So first, assess where you are. Be honest with yourself about whether or not you begin to accept a lower standard. Be honest with yourself about the pain that you are in. Not the pain that you can cover up, but the pain that you're actually in. And once you've assessed where you are, then the second part of that is to determine where you would like to be, where you want to go. Not, I was reading in the book, 10x is easier than 2x. Yeah, 10x is easier than 2x. And one of the things that the author mentions is this idea of going for what we want versus what we need. We've been conditioned to only go for what we need. And then when you see someone going beyond that, right, there's, there are judgments around, excess. There are judgments around, well, that's too much. There are judgments around, well, that's way too much money and you need to share it and spread it around, spread it. Okay. Well, and so that's because our conditioning, the societal norm is to only go after what you need to survive. And that's the reason why we have such mediocre existences. Is that making sense? Okay. So it's like, that's different than going for what you want. And when you start to go for what you want, understand that it doesn't require explanation. When you decide on a dream, when you decide on an aspiration or a goal that goes beyond what you need, like your needs are covered. Okay. So in Maslow's hierarchy of needs, like that foundation is like, the floor is basic needs. But at the top of that pyramid from Maslow is self-actualization. Like I don't get to really truly meet myself, know myself and what I'm capable of and what my potential is if I'm only targeting basic needs. To be self-actualized implies that I go beyond what I need and I start to explore, follow that curiosity, and I explore and come to know what I'm capable of. And that is only the result of going for what I truly want. And again, a want does not require explanation. You don't have to explain to anyone why you're doing it. It doesn't even have to make sense to anybody else, right? The anybody's will have you say, well, that's too much. You're doing too much. Just be happy where you are. Be grateful for what you've gotten. And this idea of being grateful, this idea of gratitude has just taken on a life of its own, so much so that people actually feel guilty for wanting more because their needs are already met. And then as well, there are some people out there who, they don't even have this. And I understand that. And the reality is you can support and assist them more, okay, by you doing more with your own life. So we're going to first assess where you are and then determine where you want to be. And there's a gap that exists right there. There's a gap between the reality and the possibility. See, all problems have that in common. There's the reality and then there is the possibility. So assess where you are, determine where you would like to be. And then the third step is take the fastest immediate action. Take the fastest immediate action. Success loves speed, right? Moving on it. There is power in imperfection. Excuse me. All right. There is power in imperfect action. See, so many people are like waiting for the time to be right. They're waiting for all their ducks to be in a row, waiting for all the lights to turn green, so to speak. And then there are those who just go. In business, it's the first mover advantage. Those who okay, what is the minimum viable product or service? And go and we'll test it in the marketplace. But we get so caught in this idea of perfectionism and fearing the judgment of those who are still on the sidelines. You know who I never hear, comments about taking action from? I never hear it from people who are actually achieving and being successful. Right? They can tell you where you messed up. They can tell you, oh, yes, I experienced this, and here's how I fixed it. But they don't, in my experience, they don't criticize action takers. The only people criticizing those who were willing to at least act are the people who are on the sidelines, and they actually benefit from you staying on the sidelines with them because it gives them one less person to have to gauge themselves against. So what is the fastest immediate action that you can take? And then you take it, right? And sometimes it requires being irrational, sometimes even illogical, where you just jump out there. Okay. You want to experience exponential growth, you got to move quickly and you got to move fast and you got to move intentionally, right? And sometimes it's irrational and illogical, but again, because you're going after what you want, it doesn't have to make sense. Now, why is that important? Well, when you move with that sudden burst of speed, you want to do that and you want to take massive action. Why? Because when you get out there, you start to run out of steam, you start to run out of, fuel, you got to slow down a little bit, you need a breather, you need a break. You want to make sure that you are far enough out, okay? Meaning far enough away from the place you're leaving that it's not so easy for you to just turn around and go back to it. Does that make sense? Right? So you want to get out there quickly and far because you're still going to get tired. You're still going to get, you're going to be fatigued. You're going to still need to rejuvenate, but you want to get out there so fast and move so far away from the place that you are currently that when you do get tired, it's not easy to just turn and take one step backwards, and you're right back where you were with the people that you were around in that same environment. So you want to get so far out there that when you do get tired, even if you do fall back a bit, so much is different that you could never return. I remember taking a road trip during the whole Southwest Airlines debacle a couple of years ago, and a good friend of mine was he was having a birthday, and it was a big birthday, and I had promised him that I was going to be there. I'm going to be there, and then so I kept waiting, and I obviously wasn't expecting the disruption in my travel plans, but I'm at a moment of decision, and it's a 12, 13-hour drive. I don't do anything over 3.5. But I told him I was going to be there. It's my buddy. I told him I was going to be there. So I'm all right, I'm going to drive it. And I got in my truck and I start driving to Atlanta. And there was definitely a point about an hour and a half in when I was I got how many more of these hours to go? Nah, I'm gonna turn around. I said, well, no. And so I kept, going back and forth with myself about whether or not I was going to turn around because, well, ultimately he would understand that I didn't make it. He would understand that there was a disruption in my travel. A flight got canceled. He would understand that. But I kept going back and forth, back and forth, back and forth until I'm like maybe 4 or 5 hours in. And I had a point where I was like, well, may as well stop this debate with myself because I've gone too far now. I'm out here now. Me and my buddy Larry, when we're golfing, it's like, things get tough out on the golf course. Like, well, we're here now. Okay. So meaning we're at a point of no return. We're at a point where we're not going back. I want you to move so far away from this place of comfort. I want you to get so far out there that it's like there's no turning back. And that's why immediately, the fastest action that you can take that springs you out so far that you're just like, well, I can't, I at this point, I cannot go back to where I was. Okay. So here's the thing. Results do matter. Results matter. More than what you know, what matters is what have you done. We're beyond this like altruistic idea of like everybody's worthy and everybody's deserving. No. You deserve it because you've earned it. It's earned. It's not luck and it's not given. It's earned. So look in your life. And where in your life is there action that can be taken? And where in your life is there something that you want that doesn't require explaining or justifying to anyone else? You want it because you want it. And then go after it. It's about results. Ultimately, it's about what have you done? And a lot of personal development is about feeling good. That's the reason why it's a turnoff to some who like to achieve. So we go beyond just the mindset. We got to go beyond the feeling of it. And what did you produce? I'll never forget. I will never forget. It's one of the great gifts I've ever received. Being told that I wasn't good enough. Being told that your results aren't the standard. And so sit this one out. Go get better. And when you're better, we like you. So if you go get better, we can still use you. But as it is right now, you're not good enough. Being told that based on my results was life altering. I had to receive it, or I chose to receive it. I accepted the feedback. But you know what else I did? I went and got better. I improved my skill. I started investing in myself. I started investing more in sales training. I started reading books on how to be more effective, how to close. I went and developed my skill. And before I left, I was number one in every statistical category. I was never again benched. And in every statistical category, I was number one. Not from luck, but from developing the skill. I produced a result that did not match how I wanted to be known. And I took it personal. I hope you will too. I hope you'll look into your life and determine that there are places where the standard is too low and you decide to raise it. Because the truth is simply this: you will not change your life until or unless you change your standard. I hope that helps. And if it does, then don't keep it a secret. Let someone know that this podcast exists. I appreciate that. And I'd also love for you to be part of my email list. And the reason why I want you on my email list is, well, because I want, the reason why is because it's just too hard. I find it more and more challenging to reach people with all of the different platforms. And then the algorithm changes and so forth. So if you join my email list, I can communicate with you directly. I share content through that channel as well. Also, announcements about programs and conferences and seminars and so forth, webinars that I'm hosting. So if the content here is of value to you, don't keep it a secret, and make sure that you're on the email list. And the way that you do that is simply go to courtlandwarren.com/opt-in, OPTIN. If you go to courtlandwarren.com/opt-in, that'll get you added to the email list. And just know, yes, I will email you. All right. Thanks for listening to another episode of Unmuted. I appreciate you. Take care.